Good day everyone, this is Enraged Explant and welcome to Dungeons and GURPS. In this video I will discuss the differences you'll experience when playing out GURPS combat compared to D&D combat. GURPS and D&D are very different when it comes to combat, and switching between the two will require a change of mindset. In D&D a combat round lasts 6 seconds, but GURPS is much more granular, with every second being played out. When in D&D you would have a standard action, a move action and a swift action, in GURPS you get one maneuver per turn. You can attack or move or concentrate or do something else. Completely new GURPS players and those who come from the D&D background often feel frustrated as they often waste turns. A turn not spent attacking feels like a waste when you come from a system where combat is usually over in 3 to 4 rounds. Archers will feel that even more. Now instead of firing 5 arrows per turn, they will get to shoot once every 2 or maybe even 3 turns. All this might make it seem that GURPS combat is very slow, but if you count how many seconds have passed, you'll see that it is pretty fast after all. However, combat might take a long time to resolve in real time. And for that I have one simple advice that applies regardless of what system you are playing. Think about your turn when others are taking their turns. Seriously, there's nothing difficult in that. I've seen some people suggest using a stopwatch to give each player 15 seconds to decide. I think that's a bit too harsh, but if it works for you, that's great, I guess. One other thing that is great about GURPS is that if you are an inexperienced player and you have an inexperienced GM, you can avoid thinking about all the possible maneuvers and options. You can just describe what you want to do with words, and the GM will just tell you how long that will take and what you should be rolling. I've already mentioned it, but GURPS is grounded in reality, so if you can do something in real life, you can attempt doing it in GURPS. But in general, do not worry about wasted turns. Sometimes even doing nothing is a legit option. Another difference that you will notice is that armor works differently. Instead of making it harder for enemies to hit you, it just decreases the damage you receive. Thus, it works more like damage reduction from D&D, but unlike damage reduction, GURPS damage resistance works against all damage, not just physical. This is something that took me a while to get used to when I switched to GURPS, as I always assumed that my fireball would ignore armor. Also, GURPS has hit locations, so you may always elect to attack an unarmored body part, if there is one, of course. Defenders do not just passively take a beating in GURPS, but can dodge, parry or block. All this creates a great deal of tactical depth, because you might need to wear an enemy down with multiple attacks to penalize defenses, attack him from the side where his shield cannot block, or try to break his weapon to prevent parrying if your weapon is heavier. Positioning also plays a more important role in GURPS. D&D lacks facing, but GURPS does not, and while D&D does reward positioning by granting bonuses to attacks from flanking, this is more pronounced in GURPS. Attacks from the side are hard to defend against, and attacks from the back cannot be defended against normally, which is huge. Also, since you can easily get a nice bonus to defense by retreating, terrain and obstacles play an important role. You might want to corner your enemies. Also, since there are no levels, the number of HP your typical human character has does not fluctuate that much. That means that you will not often fight damage sponges, unless, of course, you are fighting something like an iron golem or a gelatinous cube that have tons of HP in GURPS. Every point of damage and HP matters. A sword hit will remain dangerous regardless of how skillful your character is. And a horde of goblins who do not deal a lot of damage individually will remain a threat. You do not level up and the game does not adjust the enemies for you. I really like this aspect of GURPS, it makes the game much more immersive. There is no challenge rating, although there is something like that, called combat effectiveness rating in a pyramid article, but I have never used it. Speaking of goblins, since GURPS is grounded in reality, small characters usually have low strength values, so if you want to be a melee powerhouse as a halfling, you simply will not be one. Being small is quite advantageous in GURPS, so if you would allow, for example, the gnomes to have the same strength as humans, you would probably run into some problems. I have a blog post written about how to get the most out of your low strength, and I might cover this topic in more detail in a future video. And that's it for this one, I hope it was helpful, and I see you in the next one.